Today we'll be going over femoral acetabular impingement, or FAI. My name is Nicholas Parker. This is SPAG 425, final week 8 project. FAI is a condition in which extra bone grows along one or both of the bones that form the hip joint, giving the bones an irregular shape. Because they're not fit together like they're supposed to, the bones rub against each other during movement. There can be extra bone growth on the femoral head, causing the head not to fit into the socket properly. Or there can be extra bone growth on the hip socket, causing limited range of motion for the femur. Over time, this friction can damage the joint, causing pain and limiting activity. The injury normally occurs when the hip joint and femoral head do not form properly in childhood. Some people will never even notice this issue, and some people will experience severe pain and damage. Pain and damage to other structures can occur during high-impact sports or exercise. Um, It can also occur during childbirth if the woman has narrower hips that can handle the child's head and shoulders. These are your structures involved. The function of the hip is to connect and transfer force from lower and upper body. The hip also is the prime structure involved in hinge movements and plays a secondary role in walking. Femur is a major bone in the body, the biggest bone in the leg. It connects the leg to the hip through the hip socket. The cartilage in the hip socket provides a smooth surface to allow bones to glide against each other, and the labrum is a strong fibrous structure that assists in holding the hip together. If you look to the right, there's the anatomy of the hip there. That is a right hip. The femoral head, the acetabulum, the acetabular labrum, and the ligament head of the femur all play the role there in holding everything together, allowing you to walk, sit, hinge, etc. When looking at what structures are going to be injured, you're looking at the femur head, the hip socket itself. In extreme cases, the cartilage and labrum can become damaged. That's usually due to the actual impingement itself or to a dislocation. If the cartilage is involved, it can be worn thin or rub completely away. You also can tear the cartilage in certain areas, allowing it to peel back and result in bone-on-bone contact, which is very painful. And if the labrum is involved, it is typically torn during a dislocation. However, with the right type of deformity, you can see it caught in between the femur and the socket and be pulled in, and instead of torn, it's more of cut. In those cases, the labrum will have a much cleaner separation as opposed to being torn and having a jagged edge. For rehabilitation, there may be no need to heal from this at all, or it may require orthoscopic surgery, which then requires physical therapy and several months of healing time. The method required and chosen depends entirely on the deformity, the damage done to the structures, and of course the quality of life for the person. If they have no quality of life diminishment whatsoever, there's no reason to go in and repair this necessarily. If it's not causing them any sort of pain or discomfort, if it's just something discovered on a routine exam, there will be no issue to do anything about this. But also, they may just focus on physical therapy to strengthen the structures around it to prevent further pain, injury, and damage. If surgery is required, a person can be up on their feet within 24 hours of the surgery. It's orthoscopic, so it's typically orthoscopic, I guess I should say. It's not, you're not opening the person up, it's just done with scopes. And many surgeons recommend starting physical therapy within 72 hours, even if it's just low impact biking. All rehabilitation for this focuses on hip, glute, and hamstring strength and mobility, and it also will focus a lot on hinge patterns and allowing the hip to move through its full range of motion. It's the same no matter which version of FAI you have, which can either be impingement from the femoral head or impingement from the hip socket itself. And also, it doesn't matter whether or not surgery was performed. The physical therapy looks almost exactly the same. You just may start with less intense exercise versions when looking at surgery versus non-surgery. The rehabilitation protocol, you have common exercises used no matter what. hamstring slides and adductor slides to work on mobility and strength. The hip airplane and standing or quadruped fire hydrant is going to work on mobility and precipitation for the hip joints themselves. The hip hike and hip thrust is going to work on hip strength and uh, hip mobility. Your adduction, your step ups, squats and lunges, all basic um, rehabilitation and strength conditioning exercises to work the patterns that we're looking for in order to improve recovery and reduce pain. As far as returning to activity for post-surgical repair, there's an expectation that there'll be a full return to normal activity for the individual. This is not a career-ending injury in any shape or form. It's very
Yeah.
common in a lot of females, and it's also very common in a lot of military
Yeah.
members. The process can take up to 6 months, including surgery, physical therapy, and post-therapy strength conditioning program designed to return the individual to previous levels of activity. Uh, and after 6 month recovery period, the individual may seek out additional therapies, such as a strength coach to correct lifting form or a running coach to work on running form in order to prevent pain or injury from returning. I referred several people when looking this up, including myself, because I'm the person in all the pictures, except for the actual femur hip socket diagram. If you don't have any questions, this will be the end of my presentation.